A man was going down from Jerusalem to Jericho, and he fell among robbers, who stripped him and beat him and departed, leaving him half dead. Now by chance a priest was going down that road, and when he saw him he passed by on the other side. So likewise a Levite, when he came to the place and saw him, passed by on the other side.
The stunning footage shows people strolling by 31-year-old Hugo Alfredo Teo Yax early last Sunday morning, where he was lying dead on 144th Street in Jamaica, Queens. The surveillance video shows multiple people over the course of more than 1 hour walking by the homeless man without calling for help. In one incident, a man comes out of a nearby building and takes a cell phone picture of the dead man before leaving. Moments later, another walker stops, leans over, and begins vigorously shaking the body before walking away. After more than 1 hour and 20 minutes, firefighters finally arrive at the scene and roll Teo Yax over, revealing a large pool of blood.
The details of her injuries out of the papers, too personal.
I remember reading something about that.
Yeah, a young woman stabbed 14 times, then raped outside her building in the East Village.
Yeah, while 40 of her neighbors turned up their TVs so they couldn't hear the screams.
So what, they had TVs but no phones?
Oh, they called the police, all right, about 45 minutes later. Should have heard the excuses. Everybody assumed somebody else called it in.
If ever this Belmar, New Jersey neighborhood needed an angel, they found one. They call him St. Michael here. His real name is Michael Irwin. For the last 2 days, he's been boating people to and from their homes, working 12-hour shifts. Lucky for his neighbors, Michael is a surfer and a kayaker, so he had a wetsuit. He was also a Boy Scout, so he says he's always prepared. Irene McCann evacuated to her son's house, but now that she's returned, she needs Michael's help to reach her home. How much damage?
These have quickly become the slaps seen round the world. But the woman who delivered the blows that helped this Dayton officer fight off a suspect didn't realize how famous her helping hand would become.
I just thought I was just doing a good deed. Didn't even think it was going to make the news or nothing. And it did, it made it everywhere.
But nowhere have Angela Pierce's actions been more appreciated than here in Dayton. That's why Angela was named a Dayton Original at Wednesday morning's City Commission meeting. The officer she helped that December night, Jonathan Sider, was on hand, along with Dayton Police Chief Richard Beal, who says when he saw this video of what had happened, one thing came to mind.
The first thought came to my mind when I saw what she had done. I said, I just want to give her a hug.
It was a quick pit stop.
I stopped in for a shake and in just a few minutes and finish up my day.
Minutes earlier, a grandmother had pulled into the drive-thru here with her 10-year-old grandson in the back seat.
The lady that was taking her order noticed something was wrong. They were the ones that started screaming. And so I just come to see what I could do.
The situation was dire.
The child had decided to play with the seatbelt, pulled all the slack out, and then wrapped it around his neck several times.
And the seatbelt locks wouldn't let loose.
And they were screaming for somebody to cut him loose, and I just happened to have a knife on, a pocket knife on me.
A complete stranger to the family and the situation, Charles went to work.
It took me maybe 30 seconds to get him out after I was able to cut it loose, and it was wrapped up maybe 10 or 12 times.
The boy was unresponsive. His skin was blue.
I checked for a pulse, and there was no pulse either.
Charles knew he didn't have much time.
We performed CPR on him, and he actually come back.
Minutes later, police and firefighters got there.
We all concluded had he not been quick with his actions to cut this child out, the child probably would have faced some very serious injuries or died from this.
Gather on the bridge. A news cameraman takes this footage just minutes later. The entire 737 bar the tail section has disappeared. Joe and Nikki have made it to this island of wreckage along with 4 other survivors. One is the young mother, Priscilla Tirado. Another is flight attendant Kelly Duncan. The water is just 1 degree above freezing. The human body can only survive in these conditions for about 30 minutes.
It hurts to be that cold. It feels like knives in you to be that cold.
The emergency services arrive minutes later, but their inflatable boats can't get through the ice. It's a devastating blow for Kelly.
I really felt like I was kind of just losing hope, thinking, this is really going to be the way I'm going to die. I just didn't feel like I was ready to die.
The survivors have escaped a plane crash. But now, they'll freeze to death unless rescuers reach them within minutes. 4:10 p.m. 28-year-old Lenny Skutnik arrives at the crash scene. Lenny spotted the commotion while driving home from his office job in the center of Washington. He's unnerved by what he finds. Eagle One is almost flying blind. Their limbs are numb. They can no longer move their hands. They're giving up hope. And then they hear Eagle One approaching. Don spots the survivors clinging to the tail section of Flight 90.
We realized as soon as we looked at them that every second counted between life and death to get them out of that river.
The first survivor Eagle One rescues is 41-year-old Bert Hamilton. Gene then throws one of his improvised lifelines to flight attendant Kelly Duncan. Don and Gene now try to speed up the rescue by dropping 2 ropes. Joe Stiley grabs one of them and wraps an arm around Priscilla Tirado, the other. Nikki Felch, Joe's secretary, grabs the other rope. But to Joe's horror, she's too badly injured to hold on. Seconds later, Joe loses hold of Priscilla. Eagle One drags Joe to safety. The crew know Nikki will be kept afloat by her life jacket. Priscilla is their immediate priority. After 30 minutes in the freezing water, her chances of survival are on a knife edge. Lenny Skutnik is horrified as he watches from the shoreline. Time and again, Priscilla slips from the life ring. Traumatized, exhausted, and temporarily blinded by aviation fuel, she begins to drown. Lenny realizes he can watch no more. He jumps into the freezing water and drags Priscilla to safety. Eagle One now returns to Nikki. The crew respond with their most audacious rescue so far. Gene steps onto the skid, grabs Nikki, and wrestles her to safety. "4:35 p.m. The rescue is over.
Most people, when they think about the New York subway, then there's this culture of, if it's not my problem, why should I bother? That's not the way I grew up. Where I grew up, if you see someone in trouble, you're gonna go and help. At that time, I was relatively new to the city, so I hadn't been on the trains long enough to actually see anything, but what I saw that day really surprised me quite a lot.
My best friend, my girlfriend, and another lady friend of ours, we were out celebrating the second night of Hanukkah.
I was working at that time as a waiter. I was doing deliveries, and I was doing waiting at the same time, so it was really, really tiring. I just wanted to go back home and, get some sleep. And right off the bat, there was just a group of people being loud and kind of rambunctious. I wasn't particularly worried at the time first, and I thought that maybe, bunch of kids being a little drunk, but I didn't really think that anything was really going to happen.
Friday night in New York, I would be very hard-pressed to find train lines leaving Manhattan around the time of midnight without large drunken groups of kids. We were taking the Q train home, and when we got on the train, we said to the car, Happy Hanukkah.
This loud group of people, when they heard, him say Happy Hanukkah, they seemed to be offended by it.
Their whole party was about 16 kids, about 8 guys and about 6 girls.
One guy came across and he said,
that's when the Jews killed Jesus, and then the train doors closed.
And he came, started showing off his tattoos, and they started cursing.
You know, the first thing that happened was a lot of slurs, just hatred, and a lot of people wanting to fight.
At that point, I was still, hoping and thinking that nothing was really gonna happen.
What happened thereafter was a strike in the face.
They started beating up Walter.
And it was a big group of people just sitting there, like watching this happen for about 2 minutes doing nothing.
One of the male from their group actually came up to Angelica. He spat in her face, and he lifted up his hand like he was gonna strike her. And at that point, something in me really snapped, and I was like, I can't let this happen. I went up and I grabbed him, I was like, what the hell, are you guys crazy? And 6 guys came and grabbed me and slammed me against the train wall, and then they started beating on me.
Hassan getting involved allowed me to run to the back of the car and to yank an emergency brake.
Now after that, the train went dark, which really not only saved his life, but I think mine too.
The cops had really closed down the car and had us and the girls just start pointing to people that we thought were our assailants. When I first noticed Hassan was the police had him in handcuffs.
When the officer put the handcuffs on me, I was just thinking, oh my God, now I'm gonna have to go to jail. This is my first 3 weeks in New York. What do I do?
I told the police that it wasn't him. He tried to help us.
And then they took the cuffs off, yeah, it was pretty scary.
I went to Long Island College Hospital. I had about like 6 stitches on my lip.
They banged up most of my face.
We've become friends, and we go on walks on the boardwalk, and we talk about religion, and we talk about our lives.
My parents, me growing up, always taught me that, if you see someone in trouble, if you see something, you should always try and help that person out. You got to be kind, generous, and caring towards others. And if you can help someone, you should. It's not a Muslim saving a Jew. It's me as a person. We're all human beings. At the end of the day, I did what I did because I think each person has their own right to dignity, self-respect, and human life. Next time, it could be me.